Is Brianna ready? Oh, there we go. Got it. All right, so I'll just let everybody in and let's just get it going, right?
Yep,
It's 10 people in the waiting room.
big meeting.
If I pass out, call the police.
All set to go.
Glad that's recorded for us. For
If I fall off the chair.
All right. Welcome to the July 25th Scituate Conservation Commission meeting. As a review of our meeting procedures, this meeting is being held remotely as an alternate means of public access pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, temporarily amending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You are hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the town of Scituate in accordance with the open meeting law. We've got another little verbiage to share. This is the town commitment statement to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So the Scituate Conservation Commission is committed to providing an environment of respect during meetings. We ask all members to interact in a polite manner, even when there is disagreement. We value the participation of our community and want all participants, including marginalized and minoritized communities, to feel welcomed and respected. We ask our committee members and all who participate to commit to these standards to support and respect our community. All right. We need to
We
wait.
do roll call and then accept agenda and then ask for, whether there's any changes. Frank is on his way in. I can see him. Here
All
he
right. So Andy,
Present at home.
Brendan,
President home.
Penny,
I'm here at home.
Doug,
Present at home.
Jen, present at home. Do we have any additions or changes to the agenda?
Well, actually, yeah, there's one that I'd like to announce earlier. There has been a continuance for 327 Central Ave to the next meeting due to a technical difficulty, whatever, I guess that doesn't really matter, but so that will be read in order, but that one's going on. And then also we have on the agenda enforcement, but I don't really think that we're going to talk much about enforcement tonight. I think we're going to postpone that till next Monday as well. We don't really have too much new to discuss.
Okay. Can I get a motion to accept the agenda with those?
I make a motion to accept the agenda with the add-ons Amy just mentioned.
Right.
Second, Andy.
Thank you. Brendan,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Jen, yes. All right. We're gonna wait for Frank to open our first one, that 20 Man Hill, because I don't have that paperwork. Could we do the continuances right now, Amy? Or do you want to start with 7 New Driftway?
Whatever you want to do. Sorry for.
Oh, there you are. Okay. Well,
Sorry.
I'll let you open for 20 Man Hill Road.
Thank you, Jen. Sorry, I was late.
Oh, you just like to let me do all the fun reading.
Let's see. Jen, do I have a? Oh, on the other side. Sorry. On July 25th, 2022, at the 6 p.m. meeting at the Town Hall, Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40, the Massachusetts General Laws, and Section 30700, Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding and section 32050 of the town of Scituate Stormwater Bylaw regarding the application of Jason Schumacher for work related to constructing a single-family home dwelling with a pool, septic system, stormwater management, and associated grading, location 20 Man Hill Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the meeting is available on the agenda posted at the town website. And who do we have for an engineer?
We have Paul Bacchus, which I see, so I'm gonna unmute him. Hold on.
Excellent. Thank you, members of the commission. You can hear me okay?
I can.
My name is Paul Bacchus with Grady Consulting on behalf of the applicant, Jason and Amy Schumacher of 3 Aquinas Path in Scituate. Here to present the notice of intent for 20 Man Hill Drive, consisting of a single-family dwelling with patio, pool, on-site stormwater disposal, and on-site stormwater treatment and on-site sewage disposal. Mass DEP number SE 068-3000. The project, as we have discussed, the current site is generally wooded with an existing barn foundation. The applicant wishes to generally clear the lot and construct a single-family house with pool, patio, and associated stormwater treatment, which would be located outside the 100-foot buffer. Work within the 50 to 100-foot buffer would consist of site grading and a portion of the leaching fields. No work within the 50-foot buffer is proposed. No wetland replication as part of this project is proposed. The northerly side of the plan would have some silt sock around it for erosion control measures. The site was peer reviewed by Arthur Allen of Ecotech. And his report indicated that the wetland location appears to be consistent with that of the plan. He did recommend reflagging. The flags were rehung back and a new report was submitted to the town back on July 19th. In that report by ECR, the report confirmed the buffer zone shown on the plan to also be accurate. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions the commission may have.
Amy? Do you want to start?
Sure, let's see. I have Art Allen actually on the call, who
Oh, good.
was your peer review for this site. So I'm gonna ask to unmute Art.
I believe I'm unmuted. Thank you,
Here we go.
Amy, commissioners. Art Allen from Ecotech, certified wetland scientist, soil scientist, peer reviewer for the commission. As noted, I provided comments resulting from my review of the project plans and also a site walk, which I conducted on July 14th of this year. Amy Waukee was with me on the site visit. We transected the site, reviewed the vicinity of the wetlands shown off-site in the upper right-hand side of the plan. At the time, I noted no wetland flags present, although the observed wetland appeared consistent with the offset distance shown on the plan. As a result, Brad Holmes from ECR provided an updated wetland flagging memo dated July 18th, which just confirmed that he reflagged the wetland, found stubs of the old flags, reflagged the same locations, and I see no reason, for further concerns about the wetland boundaries or offsets provided on the plan. Thank you.
Thanks, Art. Okay. Do you want to add anything to that, Amy?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, Frank. So, well, all right. So number one, this does trigger the stormwater bylaw for area of disturbance and grading, and that is under review currently with a peer review, and there are some outstanding items on the first go around, some recommendations about stormwater infiltration. I mean, I guess you can see that there's quite a lot of fill being brought on to the site. And I was wondering if it's at all possible to move the septic tank leaching field like further away from the wetlands, if that was looked at. And otherwise, I think that we'll probably be continuing this since we don't have the stormwater findings.
We've looked at, yeah, we went through a number of revisions in trying to develop this particular site plan. And given the locations of the test holes, this is where the system had to align. The initial system actually, you can see test hole 1-2 and test hole 1-1 is the reserve area. And so to move the existing system, away from that, and the reserve area away from that, would get them away from the test hole locations. We're kind of governed by those test hole locations with the placement of the field. Shifting the field also affects the placement of the house and the placement of the pool with the minimum setbacks related to septic systems, and that affects the placement of the house and zoning setbacks in regards to the placement of the house as well. So we've pulled that, we reconfigured that system. The system initially used to span pretty much over all 4 test holes. We redesigned the system to consolidate it as best we could to get it as far away as from the wetlands as we could.
Anything else, Amy?
I think that's what I have for right now.
Okay. We'll just have to work our way through the members. I'm not sure who's on tonight. I think Richard was not available, right?
Well, actually, Frank, just because it's not clear from this plan, but if you haven't been by the site, you'll notice that 18 Man Hill is also a new construction build. So this is a second lot that they're getting out of this property.
Do you know, Paul, how many lots are there? My understanding was there was going to be 3.
My understanding is that there are 3 lots. Their current one that is under construction is number 16 Man Hill. I believe the foundation is in. Number 18 Man Hill Road, which is between this project lot and number 16,
Okay.
has not been sold to my knowledge and is still wooded.
Okay. So there's really 3 separate projects here, but lots 16 and 18 have been cleared. Pretty
No,
much.
16 has been cleared and a foundation installed, is my understanding.
Yeah.
And 18 has not been cleared. 18 is still wooded.
Okay. So I think Amy's point is when this is all done, there's going to be a fairly large area of disturbance between these 3 pieces together. They're being submitted individually, but that's the end result.
Which is part of the reason why that planning board is actually handling the stormwater review. But 18, Paul, if I'm not correct, please correct me, but 18, it's got a building permit, and so it also already has a stormwater permit. So it did go through the review for that lot. And this was separate lot.
I would want to check with Paul Marabito of Ross Engineering on that. I believe there was these 3 sites went through a process of all 3 being developed at once, all 3 sought approval at once, and that site plan for 18 may no longer be the case. And so the initial site design is going to be probably changed. I know the site design on this particular lot has changed based on what may have been presented before to the planning board.
Okay,
This is Art, just to follow up on, through the chair, to follow up on Amy's question. Paul, do you have Board of Health approval on this septic?
We had, the initial site plan had, the initial site plan with a different system had approval. We had not, we've been working to get submission into Conservation and Planning Board. So the Board of Health one has not gone in, but we'll be submitting that very soon. So, but we don't anticipate any issues, given a previous site plan was approved based on the existing site.
Okay, yeah, just so the commission's aware, there's a presumption in the Wetlands Protection Act regulations that a Title V approved septic system is presumed to be protective of the wetlands. So until such time as they have that Board of Health approval, just want to keep track of that. I mean, they've obviously filed with Board of Health, which is the basic requirement. So just want to follow that up. That's all. Thank you.
thank you, Art. Okay, again, is Richard not at in tonight?
Richard's
So-
not here tonight.
Okay. So maybe go to Doug next.
Hi, Paul. So it looks to me like the active part of that system, this being their chambers, so that's what you have posed.
Correct.
So it looks like only maybe a couple feet of the active part of the system is in the 100-foot. So then there's a 5-foot band of sand around that.
Correct.
And then you've got offset, and then you start your slope down the hill. So it's the active leaching area, not that all the rest doesn't count, but the active leaching area is almost outside of the 100. So so I think my only concern is the side slopes. They look like maybe a 3-to-1 slope.
Correct. The applicant desires like a flat level yard to the maximum extent possible.
Yeah, sure. So, you can kind of maintain that. I don't know what the plan was for vegetating that side slope. If it's just going to be grass, then you have to, you can kind of mow that. It's tough. But is that what the plan is? Just regular
Right.
loam and seed?
Yes.
So, so I think I'd like, we'd have something in there, I think maybe about, and I know we have conditions in there already to make sure that anything, vegetation or whatever is taking hold, but my concern would be erosion down that side slope. If this is going to be constructed this year, you're not going to be able to get it planted until the fall. So, we could look at a potential, even with a silt sock, with that much fill, it's not going to be that effective at stopping. Well, of course, the stone wall is kind of nice that that's there too. That sort of helps assist. So I think I'd want to see some kind of, I don't know what we have for a basic language, Amy, but something about the side slope. The other part of that is that reserve probably couldn't be constructed as is, so you'd have to add in that offset and then maybe a retaining wall or something. It would be tough to construct that reserve. And you know what? I don't know if I've ever been in a situation when they let us just construct the reserve based on the requirement of having a reserve without going back for approval again. But I think we want to make sure that that was in there, that there's not a constructive approval of you building the reserve system on this, in this application. Do you agree, Paul? Like you'd have to do something a little more than just move the field over there. You'd have to.
There would be, yes, there would most likely.
You'd have to
they would need a
excavate.
wall. Yeah.
Right, you'd have to end up with a retaining wall. So
Correct.
we're not giving the constructive approval for that. But other than that, I think that's my only thoughts around it. So the planning board's already got the they're in the process of reviewing the stormwater, correct?
We've received peer review comments and we're working to address those on the stormwater.
Okay, yeah, it looks pretty substantial already. So, okay, that's it for me.
Okay. Penny?
I don't really have any questions. I'm just looking at this. So we're actually waiting for the stormwater to be approved. Is there a possibility that the planning would have that done by our next meeting?
No,
No?
no.
How
No.
far out are they gonna take this?
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on what the back and forth looks like. But I mean, I think we could probably continue it to the second August date or the first September date. Something like that. Because our next meeting's next week, so you
Yeah, no,
you've
no, I
missed the
know that. I
deadline for
was
that, you
hoping
know?
that
Yeah.
planning might be,
No, I don't think that they even have it on an agenda.
That's what I was afraid. Yeah, okay.
Till sometime in August.
We are on the agenda for Thursday night for planning.
Oh, you are? Oh, that's good. That's
Oh,
good.
this Thursday?
Yes.
But have you addressed all the comments?
Whether or not it gets resolved is a different question.
Yeah, well, it probably won't because their deadline is also a couple weeks out. So I don't know what, we could always go to that August 22nd meeting. I think that that's achievable, hopefully.
Well, let's work our way through the members and then
Yeah.
we'll
No,
decide.
I'm okay with the plan. Everything's, you're out of the 50. Just a little bit of the leaching field is in the 100. I'm okay. Thank you.
Jen?
Yeah, I would echo Penny's sentiments and just cautious around not having, Board of Health or Planning Board yet.
Okay. Is Andy in tonight?
Yes.
Andy?
Yeah, I don't have too much to add. I mean, we'll see what that review comes back with. The lot is currently wooded though, is that correct?
That's correct.
Fully wooded. So I mean, the only other thing is if we want to account for that clearing in the 100 to try to get some mitigation, but that would be the only thing further that I see.
Okay. Brendan?
No, I really don't have any additional comments about this.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Paul, a couple of things. You mentioned that, the flags weren't there when Amy and I walked the site, but it seems like you were able to delineate that or see where the wetlands were pretty good. And then I guess it was that Brad went out and rehung them. I guess I would have thought that maybe the surveyor would have gone out and rehung those flags. I'm assuming that somebody flagged that and then a surveyor went out and located them. So, the lines are always can be a little bit arbitrary. So just wondering if we're comfortable with that, Art. Can somebody let Art in? Please.
All right, thank you. Sorry, Frank.
No,
Yeah, so the wetland line, in terms of the location and distance, I mean, the stone wall is really well defined on the property line. So just, just basically pacing off the stone wall, the distance to the wetland they show on the plan is consistent. And then in Brad's report, Brad had flagged this originally, so he knew where his flags were. He found stubs of his original flag, so he was able to reconstruct the original line. He did not flag it from scratch, it's my understanding. And that's backed up by the fact that, the distances shown on the plan are consistent with the distance to the actual wetland I saw in the field. So that's why I'm comfortable. I mean, I wouldn't be, without those factors in place, I wouldn't be as comfortable. And I'd probably even want to go back and double check, but with that all in place, I'm personally fine with it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Sure.
So I think a couple of members have brought up how much clearing is happening here. I mean, this whole lot is basically gonna get cleared in order to do the grading and the filling. Do you know, Paul, if it's being cleared right out to the street? I know that barn was there. Is there any vegetation being left at all?
No, the applicant desires to clear the lot right up to the property line.
I think Andy's point of maybe we don't have any kind of a landscape plan or any idea how they're gonna vegetate this. I mean, they're removing every tree on the site. I think it would be a good idea for us to know how they're gonna plant this, or at least what we're gonna expect for some of this. It's a big area. It's totally stripped. It's gonna be filled. There's some fairly steep slopes going to the stone wall. We may actually want to have some additional fencing or some sort of
Erosion control.
containment, erosion control at
Yeah.
that stone wall line, and maybe rounding the corner some for those slopes that we could be sure that doesn't go off property. And when you're that close, it's hard to contain that, and we've had sites where that was a problem, whether it should have, a silt fence up against the wall with a silt sock at the base of that, or you guys ought to think about that some. And how that can be stabilized, maybe a little bit of enlightenment as to whether when they fill that, they can get it loomed and seeded right away, or something to that effect. But I think it would be good to know how they intend to revegetate the site, given that the whole thing is just being clear cut and stripped and essentially regraded.
Okay.
If anybody else,
I would agree with that, Frank.
Frank, and you've got to ask for a butters too. if you-
Yep.
mind.
yeah, I just noticed, if we have anybody in the waiting, would like to speak to this.
So that would be using that raise hand feature on the Zoom. You take comments, if you're in a butter, or any other interested party. Seeing none currently.
All right, well, if we need that kind of information, what do you think in terms of continuance?
I would have to get information within 2 weeks before the next meeting, Amy, is that correct?
A week,
1 week,
yeah.
and
And we're also looking for that, hopefully for the stormwater to be set so we can write conditions reflecting the stormwater permit and the orders.
so just in terms
Attach
of,
like the O&M and things like that.
in
So,
terms of technical timing, does the stormwater have to be approved 1 week prior, or?
yes, yep, we'd like to see that in. So
um,
we distribute our packets.
And so your next 2 meetings, you said one's next week?
Correct, and then the next August meeting is this 22nd. Or we go to our first September meeting a week or two later.
Okay, so can we request a continuance to Monday, August 22nd then?
Sure.
I'll make a motion to continue to August 22nd, 20 Man Hill.
Second,
And it's a second from Jen, so all in favor, Doug,
Yes,
Andy,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
and Frank, yes. Great, thank you. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you for your time.
7 New Driftway. This is a continuance. We have Mackenzie Engineering.
Yes, I see Eric Shoemaker. I was looking for Brad. Oh, I'm not Holmes, Brad McKenzie. I don't see Brad McKenzie.
It's it should be just Brad Holmes and I tonight.
Okay. Take it away, Eric.
All right, thanks. So this meeting is really just to catch everyone up with the revisions to the site plan. We've gone to a few planning board meetings. We had one about 2 weeks ago, and we've been receiving some review letters from Chessier Consulting and kind of addressing them as we go along. I know it's been a while since we met with this board, so we just wanted to catch everyone up with the site plan. So if you wouldn't mind just flipping to, I think, sheet C2, we'll start there. So the main revisions to note were of the grading and drainage for the site. We'll start to the rear of the building. So we alleviated some of the grade in the back, and that allowed us to remove those retaining walls we had around the rear face of the building. And you'll see on sheet C1, I have the closest point there, that northwestern corner of the building labeled as 11.5 feet away from the limit of inland bank. Comparing that to the 10.8 feet that separates the existing shed that's located to the rear from the inland bank. We're making that situation better. You'll see in Brad Holmes' report, we're also decreasing the impervious coverage on site from about 54% to 29% impervious coverage. After Chessier's review of our initial stormwater design, we removed the infiltration basin that was underneath the parking area. So we provided just a series of catch basins and a trench drain at the lower slope into the driveway, the parking underneath the building. The catch basins get routed to it's a pretreatment unit, a First Defense proprietary pretreatment unit, and then into a rain garden located on the eastern side of the plan. There's a sediment forebay in that rain garden. So the combination of those catch basins, the pretreatment unit, and the sediment forebay allows us to get the water quality treatments. Like I said earlier, we're also significantly reducing the impervious coverage on site. And since the project is a redevelopment, that covers the recharge standard of the site. So that's generally the rundown of the changes we've had since then. We tried to really just alleviate those retaining walls in the back, as well as the grading, and just we think this is a better site plan after our revisions. I can touch on any questions the board may have.
Yeah, so Frank,
Yeah.
so it has been quite a bit since we've seen this project. And I think if we leave off or start where we left off as far as the building location, and then also on to improvements to First Herring Brook and bank stability, and back over to Art Allen for comment, just because he's reviewed all of this from the Wetland Protection Act standpoint, while we're also concurrently overlap permitting with the planning board, and they're really working with the peer consultant there to hone in on the details. But there were some bigger items that needed to be fine-tuned the last time we left off, so maybe we'll just turn it over to Art, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Hello again, Art Allen from Ecotech, peer review consultant for the commission. Yeah, I've reviewed these most recent plans. Most of my comments had been addressed by prior plans. I mean, in general, I think they've met the redevelopment provisions in the Wetlands Protection Act for riverfront area, which, as the commissioner aware, are somewhat relaxed for a redevelopment side. I think they're pretty clearly showing an improvement to the existing conditions. With a decreased impervious and a pretty robust native planting plan to improve site conditions, as well as stormwater, which I think basically there's no stormwater existing on this pretty highly developed site at this point. So, yeah, I mean, I think they've met the bar of an improvement over existing conditions for redevelopment. I know they've also addressed the bylaw performance standards for land subject to coastal storm flowage. As the commission's aware, there are currently no performance standards under the state act for land subject to coastal storm flowage, but there are under the bylaw. They've addressed those standards, and I believe they're pretty clearly improving the conditions in that resource area. My only real outstanding comment was Brad had stated in his most recent response that his proposal for inland bank stabilization had been provided on the plans. I just could not find that myself. As the commission may or may not remember from my initial site evaluation, there's a corner of the First Herring Brook Bank. It's mostly the bank is pretty heavily armored, but there's a section in the central part where the bank has been undermined and is failing. And I recommended that they address bank stabilization. Brad had put together a protocol for that, which I agreed with. I just had recommended that they work that into the construction sequence, because ideally that stabilization work should be done after the existing building is demolished and before they start construction on the new building, so they have unimpeded access to that portion of the bank to do the stabilization work. So that's important. And then that protocol just needs to appear on the plan somewhere. So I defer to either Eric or Brad in terms of whether that's on there and where it is, if they could explain that. If not, it needs to go on there.
So I believe that was shown on a plan that was submitted by Brad Holmes a couple months ago. It might not have been resubmitted, but I touched base with him. I'm currently working on some revisions. We got another peer review letter from the planning board, so I'll be sure to include that this next time around.
Great, thank you.
Also, I had a question about time of year restriction for the work, whether that would be something that is either in the protocol or should be conditioned.
We're not working in the waterway, so that we would be a time of year restriction as far as the fisheries scenario would go. But obviously any planting would be timed for the fall or the spring seasons.
Okay.
What's your concern, Amy?
I just was thinking about that's something that we touch on oftentimes on streams like this.
Right. Does anybody want to get any other information? We can start to make our way through the commission members. Penny?
No,
There's an awful lot on this plan.
Oh, I
so-
know there is, but if I can recollect properly, I like this plan much better. I like all the open area. going towards 3A, you know, the plantings and this and that, and the plantings down by the brook. No, I think you're working your way to a good plan here. Thank you.
Okay. Jen?
Yep. I guess I have one question. You pointed out that that corner, I don't remember what you called it, is like 11 feet or 10 feet or something from the bank, which is better than the shed. But isn't this a building with like a foundation, whereas the shed is just on the surface?
We were comparing the distances of existing structures on site when we did that to prove that as a redevelopment, we're leaving it in a better situation than what exists now. Art Allen touched on it a bit as well. There's also no stormwater controls. All the runoff just, sheet flows from that parking area being used by, everyone who sees fit, and the stormwater just sheet flows into the First Herring Brook. So we just had to prove that as a redevelopment, we're leaving it in a better condition. And those dimensions are mapped out on the site layout plan sheet C1, if anyone's curious and looking into that.
Okay, but it's still a building with a foundation and a parking garage under it compared to a shed that's on the ground surface.
I believe it's the closest impervious surface is the distance. So both of them are impervious surface.
Okay.
I may jump in, Eric, I think the pavement in general throughout the site is a lot closer than those distances referring to the shed and the proposed building as well. The pavement goes right up close to the brook, and in general, everything's reduced in size. So, well, the note about the distance from the shed to the proposed building is so that we comply with the riverfront regulations for redevelopment. And actually, this is a project where we don't have to do any restoration or mitigation because we're reducing everything significantly. However, we are doing a robust planting plan and actually providing a significant amount of mitigation, even though it isn't technically required to meet the standards, but this site offers an opportunity to do so.
I guess I've got this up on my iPad, so I'm looking at the various plans, and if anybody had the opportunity to look at EX1, existing conditions 1, you could see where the parking was substantially more on the site that's there now. It comes right down fairly close to that. So does that help if you take a look at that? I understand what you're saying, Jen. The building itself is probably 50% larger. However, this building and the paving and stuff around it was done a long time ago without much control.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I guess my challenge is not the right word, but it's like you're putting far more invasive structure closer to the riverbank.
Your point about a trade for a shed for 50% larger of a building is well noted, but
Fair enough.
I think you give them a little bit more for the amount of asphalt that they're removing along the edge of the river. Would be something to think about.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Andy?
Appreciate the update. I don't have any other questions at this time.
Brendan?
Is the shed being removed?
Yes.
Yes, the shed will be removed.
Okay. All right, that's
Um,
all. No, thank you.
And Doug?
No, I think my concern will, all the way to the end will be just protection of the anything that comes off the site going into First Herring Brook, which I'm sure that's being addressed in the review. And I'm not trying to put words in Jen's mouth. I think she's talking about the substance of the structure itself. That there's going to be an excavation for that underground garage, is there not?
Yes, thank you, Doug.
The underground garage is going to be at, elevation 11. The existing portion of the site it's going on is generally elevation 11 to 12. So there will be excavation for the foundation, but we believe it will be minimal.
So like 4 foot or so frost wall kind of thing, and then the basement slab is, or the garage slab is there, and then everything's constructed above that.
That sounds correct. I can't speak on the exact details of the architectural and the structural engineering, but I believe
Yeah,
that's
okay.
close.
So
Would be
yeah, because
close.
and again, I'm not putting words in Jen's mouth, but I think that like you picture a 8 or 10 foot dig that close to the edge of the slope, you've got to be concerned about the integrity of the slope being damaged, because that's a pretty steep slope going down to First Herringbrook. But you're also correct that right now there's pavement that goes right up to the edge of the slope, so that is going to be significantly improved. But so the construction of that, making sure that that slope is maintained and does not get damaged, will be part of it. Which I know you're already taking that into account, and like I said, then the rest of it is water quality, and I know that's underway as well. So that's it
Okay.
for me.
Do we have anybody in the audience?
Brendan has raised his hand. So I'm gonna unmute him. I don't know.
You don't have to unmute me. I can unmute myself.
Oh, I was like, I don't know what happened.
I clicked it. I'm sorry. But actually, I do have a question, if I may.
Sure.
The garage, is that one of the 3 stories, or is that like a basement not included?
The measurements taken from the average grade plane for height, but I believe it's one of the 3 stories. I can look into that for you, but again, I can't speak to the architecture.
Okay, thank you.
Do you think that's significant? Because if it's not included, then there's an excavation of another 10 feet or so below that elevation 11. So that brings
Yeah.
back to Jen's point about the excavation of that massive of a foundation that close to the bank.
Doug, I love when we tag team our questions. You really just bring a lot of clarity to what I'm loosely tossing out there.
I don't know if architecturals were submitted as part of this, but
Do we have any info on that? Maybe not tonight, but that would be a good thing to have at the next meeting.
yeah,
So
that would clear it all up for everyone.
we could certainly see what that. And I hope I didn't. If anybody misunderstood what I was saying, this is a substantial amount of work in a very sensitive area. My point was that there's more to it than just the trade-off of the shed for that piece, but the building's just roughly looking at the plan, at least 50% larger than the footprint of the old building that was there. But anyway, do we have?
Can I just say one more thing about that?
Sure,
I'm
yeah,
looking
yeah.
at this plan that it says BSE. I'm going to say the basement slab elevation is elevation 11. I think that answers the question. That the slab's pretty much at grade. So the only thing that's going to be excavated under that would be the frost wall.
That's correct.
The stone and everything. Okay, so I think that helps. All right, I'm going to shut up now and let you
No,
talk.
well, don't never say never. Brad, you were talking about a robust planting plan, but I'm not seeing that on this, or am I missing something?
It's
No,
not on this sheet, Frank. It's on a separate sheet. Which
I
actually
have
we
it.
may have in
It's
queue.
nice, Frank.
Jen, can you go to the next plan, maybe?
There you go.
That's the one.
Okay, great. This is helpful. Thank you.
And everything that's proposed is native to fit within a buffer riverfront area.
It's gonna be lovely, I think.
As well as seed mixes for herbaceous growth, so it's a significant improvement.
Thank you for putting that up. I'm gonna open this up to anybody in the audience. I see Samantha Woods is on. We could,
Frank, I'm gonna unmute Samantha Woods, NSRWA.
great, thank you. Good evening, Samantha.
Hello, can you hear me?
We got you.
All right, terrific. How you guys doing?
Great. How are you tonight?
Good. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to ask some questions. I don't think I've seen the landscape plan, so I'm hoping maybe I can get that and look at it more in detail. But so I just had a couple of questions, and I think some of it's being talked about already by Jen and others about the proximity of the residential building to the brook. And sort of that trade-off between a shed and a building and maybe the parking. And I think, anything that we can do to move it and give more buffer to the brook would be something that we would think would be better for the resource areas. Just to give it a little bit more space. It's obviously it's a pretty tight thing. And I know that, I know and understand and have seen the stormwater that currently exists there. So I'm pleased to see the improvements that are being made, but if there's anything that can be done to somehow move it back a little bit more, I think that would be helpful. It's pretty massive, sort of big structure there. So that's just one comment. I had a question about the stormwater. I'm not sure if this is the right place to do that because I don't really know where the stormwater gets reviewed, but the one concern I had is, will these residents be allowed to have dogs? And if so, where will they allow their dogs to defecate? And is there some means to try to prevent that from becoming part of the stormwater runoff? And I guess while I'm on the question of that stormwater runoff, it sounds like a good treatment plan. I guess I'd like to hear, what the nutrient reduction and bacteria reduction in particular will be from these treatment systems to meet the standards that are in the receiving water body for shellfish. So, the shellfish standards downstream are pretty low. They're 14 fecal coliform units per 100 ml. And so these waters directly travel there. And so we'd like to see what that reduction is in bacteria by the proposed treatment train that's being proposed. And then just how much recharge is getting done. And it's not just what's in the water, but it's the temperature of that water that we want to see reduced, and we want to see as much water recharged as possible back into the ground, so that whatever that initial flush is that's hot is getting a chance to cool down and recharge into the groundwater, which then recharges that First Herring Brook stream flow, which is in already pretty impaired shape because of other modifications. So, those are just, some things I'd like to hear a little bit more about. If there's ways to increase the recharge ways to make sure that if there are dogs, that there's some management plan in place to not allow dog waste. I know that's hard, but to minimize that. And I'm pleased to see the regrading of the slope and the removal of some of that retaining wall. I think that was a comment we were going to make, so I'm glad that that's happening. And I'm really glad to see some of the, I haven't seen the details on the plan, but we're worried about shading of the stream, making sure that the trees are mature and that there's shading to keep that cool temperature in the river. As we know, it's just getting worse with the heat that we're experiencing from climate change. I didn't hear the improvements to the stream bank there was something wrong with my internet connection. It became unstable when I think your peer reviewer was mentioning something about the proposal to offer some more stabilization. We know it's pretty heavily armored, but maybe there was a section I think that he was talking about that's not, but needs some stabilization. I don't know what was being proposed there. We'd prefer to see more native vegetation to stabilize the stream bank if you're going to put anything in. And then just something that's not really the problem of this particular owner, but there's a knotweed problem craziness over there. Japanese knotweed on the banks across the stream. I guess you don't have as much of the problem because it's armored, but anything that the proponent might want to do to help with managing the Japanese knotweed that's invaded both sides, that the other side of the stream, I think would be a public benefit to the park across the way. It would certainly, I think, help it as an amenity to the people who are going to live here, to have some more native vegetation on the opposite side of the bank, or some help to the town to try to manage it. So those are just some, that's a lot of stuff. Sorry. I thought I'd just get it all out there, throw it on the
Sure.
table and see if there's any comment to that.
So if you have hit a lot of subjects, Samantha, and I'm just wondering where we back up to, or if we go in reverse. Trying to remember what was before the dogs. Somebody want to respond, either Brad or maybe Art, with a couple of the points that were made. Can you start a little bit?
I can speak a little bit to her questions, Mr. Chairman. So a rain garden does get credit for total nitrogen removal, total phosphorus, metals, copper, lead, zinc, cadmium, as well as some pathogens like coliform and E. coli. I'm taking that directly off of the stormwater management standards. So I can't speak to whether dogs should be allowed on the premises. That's a question for the applicant. And I would just like to touch that the stormwater is getting reviewed by the planning board and their consultant. What else was I going to say? The topic of recharge, you'll see the significant portion of the site is within the limit of zone A. The only portion that really isn't in the limit of zone A is where we place the rain garden. And what the zone A does is it basically makes it so we can't infiltrate on site within that portion. We also have significant resource areas, overlays such as the Water Resource Protection District, the Salt Marsh and Tideland Protection District, the Floodplain and Watershed Protection District. So we were really handicapped here with what we could do with stormwater. So by decreasing that impervious surface I talked about earlier, cutting it down from 54% to 29%, we adjust the recharge standards under the Massachusetts Stormwater Management Handbook. The shellfish growing area is located, I think it's about a half a mile to a quarter mile to the south, taking that from Mass GIS and their maps. If you were to regulate every single site that dumps into the First Herring Brook that eventually ends up in the shellfish growing area, you could trace that back to Smelt Pond, which I believe is to the northwest, and that receives some tributary runoff from Rockland and other towns. So we are complying with the stormwater management regulations, we believe, as far as those respects.
Art, do you want to add to that? We'll get back to you in a second, Samantha.
Yeah, sure. Art Allen from Ecotech again. So the, I mean, the landscape plan that we're looking at now, I mean, that was added as a result of comments from myself and others to the initial plan. I mean, it's a pretty robust plan with native plantings, a lot of, overstory and, in terms of the shading, and providing additional habitat as well with all those, with that kind of diversity in native planting. So I thought that was a real improvement. And then, I had noted on my first site visit that failure, undermining and failure of the bank that's active along this side of the First Herring Brook. And Brad Holmes came back with a nice, proposal for stabilization. I'm trying to find the actual, it's been so long since I looked at that. Maybe Brad, I don't know if you can jump in about your actual proposal, but I thought it was kind of a hard and soft, kind of a hybrid program for that stabilization. You able to jump in on that, Brad?
Sure. Thanks, Art. The stones that are dislodged and fallen from the bank in that one vicinity of, I think it's inland bank number 6, it's 30 feet or so width along the stream, above the stream, would be repositioned. And then above that, there would be a series of coir logs and native plantings up to the top of the bank so that it wouldn't be any additional armoring. So it's just to restore the slope that's kind of slumping above where the stones have fallen. And then, as I said, the goal of the riverfront redevelopment is that we don't increase any degraded area on the site. And if we were to increase degraded area, it is permissible under the riverfront redevelopment regulations as long as you restore or mitigate. And on this site, we didn't have to restore or mitigate because we reduced the amount of degraded area on the site like 30%, or Eric can give me a better percentage, but huge amount. And there isn't a requirement to do the planting plan that's there because we're already in compliance with the riverfront redevelopment regs. But this, as we said before, offers the opportunity. So I think that it's a win-win for the developer and the riverfront. Eric, how much of a overall percentage in degraded conditions are we reducing it by?
Goes from 54% to 29%. So it's at 25%, just about half.
Thank you.
Sam, I don't think we've addressed everything, but, and the dog one, I guess we can talk to the commission members, or that we can talk about that with the site, if we can get some postings or something like that. I know that that's not the big one here, but certainly it's part of it. But why don't you see what we didn't touch on, or we can get you some more information on.
Yeah, I just unmuted Sam.
Thanks, sorry, I had sort of muted myself and then I was stuck. But yeah, I think, I mean, there's definitely the reduction in impervious is noted, and the bar was pretty low for how bad it was. So I'm glad to see all of the improvements, and I'm glad to see the native planting. Will there be grass? Is that green space with on the left of the plans, is that grassed area, or is that the native plant mix that somebody was discussing that would be more vegetative shrubbery?
There are native seed mixes and wildflower mixes. It's detailed on the kind of the right side of the sheet. And what we can do is we can make sure you get a copy of the landscape plans so that you can review it.
That would be great, Brad. Thanks. I appreciate it. And I'm glad to hear that you're, stabilizing with as much, soft solutions as you can. I guess sort of back, I'll have to go back and reread the stormwater regs for the discharge to shellfish receiving waters. And see if I can push back a little bit more on you.
Sam, just a comment from Amy here. If you could put some of your comments in writing and we could get them over to the planning board,
Sure.
peer review, that would be an appropriate venue for some of that stuff, maybe to be written into their permits and answered.
Yep.
Since they're the primary on the stormwater review.
Yeah, I'd be happy to put that together and we'll get that. I've been kind of waiting to kind of see as you guys change things and as they updated their plans.
Yeah, it's making progress slowly but surely, this project is, and I believe that the next hearing date with the planning board is coming up soon. Eric, what's the next date? It's within the next
I
month.
believe it's the 25th of August.
Right, and then, but I had a conversation with Karen Joseph, and I asked if that meeting would be the meeting that would be closing, and she said definitely not, wouldn't be ready for that one. But so I was gonna throw out a date to continue, because I know there's a lot of things that you guys are fine tuning on this project. I was gonna throw out the date. Where did I write down? October 3rd, and hopefully the stormwater will be wrapped up by then and we can close with conditions.
Okay. I know I get lost in some of the regulations, what's required, what isn't, what we can ask for. So the mitigation for this project, is there mitigation? I mean, it seems like there's areas here that are vegetated and all that, but is that part of that application?
Well, there actually isn't mitigation needed or proposed in order to qualify for work in the buffer or the riverfront, but there's mitigation. I guess we can call the landscape plan actually an overall mitigative condition, but it's not something where we're in the 50-foot buffer or we're in the riverfront where we have to come up with a planting plan in order to comply with the regulations. I think it's just it's an overall betterment, whether you call it mitigation or a betterment. I guess that's up to you guys.
Okay. Samantha, have you, this is more curiosity, have you seen a good knotweed eradication proposal yet, or any success in doing that? This stuff is so tenacious, and some of the applications that people are using, whether it's that or Phragmites, leave you scratching your head a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's a tough one. I'm sure maybe Brad would even have more insight. I've seen some recent work by the Ecological Landscaping Association. That was an article about just using cutting instead of chemical treatments, which typically I've done some work on the South River to remove Japanese knotweed in a park. We've had some success there using chemical herbicide very in a very focused and limited way, but over multiple years. Both we would cut and apply so we would cut usually in the sort of spring, early summer to knock it back, and then we would apply herbicide during senescence, during the fall, when the plant is putting its new carbon stores down to bring the herbicide into the root system, which, as you know, is a rhizome system. So that's part of the problem, is one big plant. So we did that treatment probably for 4 years on the South River Park, on the South River in Marshfield, and to great success. It's not totally eliminated, but quite reduced. It's starting to come back a little bit, so we're going to have to go back and do some more treatment. But it is possible with, it's like a marathon, not a sprint.
Right.
And as I said, I've recently read an article, I don't know how successful it really is, but where they've just cut and cut and cut, like cut the first year, cut it 12 times during the growing season. The second year, cut it 11 times, and so on for like 10 years till you get to one, and then it gives up the ghost, I guess. But there's a lot of it there. We've cut it before at the park for multiple years in a row. I've sent interns down there to cut it, but unless you have the dedicated time and you need a place to remove it to safely so that you're not spreading it. So, I think that a chemical treatment with cutting is probably the most effective.
Okay. So it goes back to my recollections with the MBTA when they were proposing some of their work and the Rotary, and they were supposed to help with all that.
And they did spray for a while, Frank. I
Yeah.
think it was a 2 or 3 year thing, but if you walk away after that, then.
Right, nothing's been done since then.
And
with
it got
anyone.
worse after the park was built. They, that knotweed wasn't as vigorous, and it wasn't on the park island, whatever that is, peninsula, until they did, obviously they had to clear things. And when they disturbed the soil, the Japanese knotweed took over.
Yeah, it's been there. Well, I'm gonna date myself, but I was probably 13 or 14 working in a paint store that was where the river shed is now, and they had me out there with a sigh, just working the edge.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's been there.
Certainly
It's
there.
been
On
there
that
for-
bank, it has been. The park,
Yeah.
I think, was it wasn't as vigorous for sure, because I remember being able to get into the river from the park during my
Right.
tenure. So
So that site before that was an old contractor's site, and I'm sure that stuff got started way back when they brought in material 50, 60 years ago.
well, I'd love to talk to people about how we can do something there, because it's a shame. It really needs to be. It's visually unappealing, but it's also obviously ecologically damaging.
Right.
So
Sure.
love to work with you all to figure it out. So
Okay. Well, thank you very much for taking the time looking this over too. We appreciate it.
sure, I'll
Um,
send my comments via a letter to
That
the
would
planning
be,
board.
that would be great. And then so we can work together with the planning board on some of
Yeah,
those.
if you can put them to Karen Joseph's attention too, please.
Will do.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Do we have anybody else this evening on this?
Seeing none tonight, Frank.
Okay, so where do we want to take this one?
To October 3rd.
Yep.
Okay,
Can I
Does
make a
somebody wanna-
motion, Frank?
Penny, I'm surprised you asked. Go ahead.
I'm asking. I make a motion, we continue 7 New Driftway to October 3rd.
And a second? That was who?
Jen,
Jen, thank you, Jen. All in favor, Doug,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
Frank, yes. That was resounding. One of the things maybe, I know that we hadn't had much discussion on this site for a while, and you guys have had a chance to see it tonight, but why don't you put any of your thoughts together as well? If there's something comes to mind, get something over to Jen that she can share with the commission members, and we'll look at what came from Samantha and see that. I do think that the developer and their engineers are moved a lot in the right direction in our opinion. They're moving a lot closer in the right direction. So if we can get the things that we think are important. I think you've heard some of Samantha's and cooling down the stream and protecting all of that. If we can try to get some of those things in, it would be helpful. Thanks.
Frank, I know the screen says 34 Ocean Drive,
Yeah.
but on the agenda, it should be, the queue is 3 Seagate, and there's a request to continue to 8:20.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that.
Okay,
Okay,
I have it. I'm just waiting for Frank.
no, I'm done.
Okay. I'm gonna make a motion. 3 Seagate Circle be continued to August 22nd.
I have a second.
Second.
Second that.
I think Jen got you. All in favor? Doug,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
and Frank, yes. Thanks. Okay, so now 34 Ocean. And that was continued from 7-Eleven.
right, and so this is Grady Engineering. And I think been dealing with Dylan. But I don't see him, so maybe, actually, who's from Grady can raise your hand, I'm not sure.
Amy, can I have a clarification before we start?
Okay,
Are they just going to ask for the septic and not the addition and all that? Is it just a septic?
What, does anybody remember why this was continued?
No.
sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. There's no DEP number on it last time, so that's why it was continued before.
Okay,
But then also it was identified for an elevation with the addition, so they pulled the addition off it and are just going for the septic.
So they have the DEP number and stuff?
This project does, yes, indeed.
Okay, good. So we can scoot it along, I hope.
Yeah, I
Yes.
mean, typically we have an engineer present. Darren Grady stamped it, and I believe that this does have Board of Health approval. It was pending our approval. I know that the next project, Revere Street, is not ready to go because there was a technical or administrative holdup with the number at DEP level, so not sure why nobody from Grady is here. Maybe we should we'll move on and come back. So how about read the official continuance for 327 Central?
Okay,
8-1.
okay. I make a motion, we continue 327 Central Ave to August 1st.
Second from Jen.
okay. All in favor? Doug
Yes.
and Andy,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
Frank, yes. Great, thank you.
Okay.
15 Revere,
No, they're both.
Frank, that's the same
Okay.
thing. There's nobody from Grady on this call. It does not appear at this point. So why don't we move on to 121 Jericho with Greg Morse is on the call, so.
all right, are we,
Okay.
we want to continue to 327?
We just did.
Okay,
We continued it, Frank,
I thought we were
to
looking at,
August 1st.
I thought we
A
just
lot of things
continued.
on, so it's confusing,
Yeah, sorry.
but I'm gonna unmute Greg Morse. How about that?
Yep.
Hi, Greg.
Good evening.
Close.
We're ready to go on 121 Jericho.
Yep.
Yes.
So this is a continued hearing for a stormwater permit and a notice of intent for a raise and rebuild at 121 Jericho Road. I presented this plan to the commission previously.
Yeah.
This had gone out for peer review with Merrill Associates, and the day of the hearing at the last meeting, I believe you received sign off from Peter Palmieri that he was satisfied with the stormwater requirements. There were a couple of very minor outstanding items. We submitted a revised plan. Those minor items where we extended the erosion control barrier around the entire site. It used to stop along Foam Road, but we extended it along Jericho and Foam Road. Secondly, we added a note saying that a construction entrance would be constructed where the existing driveway is off of Foam Road. Those were the two minor revisions that we made since the last time I was in front of you. Again, you have Merrill's sign off on this. With respect to the wetlands, the project is in the FEMA floodplain at elevation 15, and we've proposed a FEMA compliant foundation above the floodplain elevation. DEP had no comments. I think you're ready on this one. I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Amy?
Yeah, that's probably more of a recap than we even needed, but thanks, Greg. Looks like we're ready to close. That was just technical items that we're missing that are now set, so.
Okay. Jen?
Nope, I've got nothing.
Andy?
Good on this one.
Brendan?
I'm all set.
Penny?
Looking good.
And Doug?
Good.
Okay. Do we have anybody in the audience for this?
Seeing none, Frank.
No, I'll take a motion here.
I make a motion to close
Well, we gotta,
121 Jericho.
was this the one that we had talked about last time about closing and issuing? Because we talked about that with a couple of things.
You can make a motion to issue too, that's fine.
Okay, I make a motion to close and issue on 121 Jericho Road.
That was Penny. Do we have a second?
I second that.
Brendan, all in favor? Doug,
Yes.
Jen,
Yep.
Andy,
Yes.
and Frank, yes. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
141 Driftway. Do we have the information we needed to?
So on 141 Driftway, this was another one where it's in peer review for the stormwater, and we did receive another comment letter from the peer reviewer, and there are a few items. But I think Greg will probably want to speak to this.
Okay.
Great. Again, for the record, Gregory Morse, registered engineer. This was an amendment for a notice of intent and a stormwater permit for the properties at 141 Driftway. As Amy just mentioned, we went through 2 rounds of peer review with John Chesia on this. What we had proposed here was installing 2 septic systems behind the single family homes. And as a result, we had shifted the 2 rain garden locations on lot 4A and lot 4B. John's latest letter had a couple of what I would say minor outstanding issues. I think John's letter suggests that they could all be conditioned in an order of conditions. I guess the biggest of those issues was that on lot 4A, he questions the elevation of the groundwater in the rain garden. I would state that we've dug over 12 test pits at this site. Groundwater is consistent. We've had 2 soil evaluators out at this site, and I'm very confident in the elevations that we have. This site doesn't discharge to any down gradient property abutters, but John questions whether the elevation of the bottom of the rain garden would provide the 2-foot groundwater separation, and he suggests that you could condition that a monitoring well be installed. We would accept that condition. We're confident in the elevations that we have here. The commission has the ability to waive the requirements altogether as this discharge is to land subject to coastal storm flowage, but we'll take the condition of a monitoring well if so desired. Other than that, we'd be looking to close this as well.
Okay. Amy, you want to add anything to that?
Well, geez, I think this has been pretty thoroughly reviewed. I guess we can restate again, you know, how we're not quite sure how it came to be that it's not connected to sewer. But anyway, since it's not, yeah, I would say let's close this and condition.
Okay. there was Greg brought up a point about a monitoring well, and I'm just not really sure what real.
I mean, the monitoring
Benefit.
well, yeah, I guess that would be a way to accurately evaluate depth of groundwater. But I think at the end of the day, Greg sums it up pretty well in that it's land subject to coastal storm flowage. And if these rain gardens do run wet, not sure. You know, that's a huge negative. Anyways, that's my comment.
It just, to me, it just seems like it's overkill at this point. I mean, I doubt anybody's gonna look at these things. I think,
Well, it's just, it comes down to accuracy, you know what I mean? So you do want accurate information, but in this case, I'm not so sure that that's gonna go further for the project and at the end of the day. So I think you should, I mean, I'm not gonna, it looks like things are thoroughly reviewed here.
okay. All right, so we're not gonna add
No,
that. All right, so.
Who's gonna monitor the monitoring well?
we're not gonna do it.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. That,
Yeah.
Yeah, you could put a piezometer in, honestly, you could hand install a piezometer and you could figure it out that way with just
Well,
screen.
Doug could go down and monitor it if you want.
But this is just, it's, when it's wet, it's gonna be wet. How about that?
There we go. All right, so
Go around the table quick.
anybody want to add anything to this? Doug,
I'm good.
Penny,
I'm happy.
Jen,
I'm good with Amy's comments.
Andy? Brendan,
I'm all set.
okay. I'll take a motion.
I make a motion to close 141 Driftway.
In a second.
I'll second that.
Thanks, Brendan.
Thank you.
All in favor, Doug,
Yes,
Jen,
Yep.
Andy,
Yes.
Frank, yes. Okay,
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
now we're back to what to do with 34 Ocean and 15 Revere. Maybe we'll just continue to August 1st since it's in less than a week.
Oh, yeah, that would be good.
okay. Can you send, somebody want to send Brady an email?
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
Maybe.
I'll make a motion to continue 34 Ocean Drive and 15 Revere Road to August 1st.
Okay, and a second
Second, Andy.
from Andy. All in favor, Doug,
yes.
Jen,
Yep.
Brendan,
Yes.
Frank, yes. Maybe Paul's got a new Zoom computer or something. He hasn't figured out how to turn on. Okay, so now 5 Wampatuck Way, right?
Deck footing.
This is Greg Morse again.
Yep. So on July 25th, 2022, during the 6 p.m. meeting at Town Hall, Situate Conservation Commission will act on the request of Walter Hannon for a determination of applicability of Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Situate Wetlands Bylaw for activities related to constructing a deck on sonotubes of a single-family dwelling at location 5 Wampatuck Way, Scituate, Mass. The butters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the meeting is available on the agenda posted on the town website. Okay.
Great.
And that-
For the record, Gregory Morse, Morse Engineering, representing the property owner, Walter Hannon. This is an RDA for construction of a deck at Mr. Hannon's home at 5 Wampatuck Way. The property is located in the FEMA floodplain. It's an AE at elevation 15. For reference, the site varies in topography from elevation 7 to approximately elevation 10. The deck would be constructed at the first floor elevation, which is above floodplain at 17.6, but it would be supported on the ground by sonotubes. The sonotubes would be dug with a mini excavator, and the soil from the sonotube locations would be removed from the site There would be no change in grading associated with the project. There are no vegetated wetlands or other resource areas at this location or within 100 feet of it. We have proposed a silt fence around the limit of work regardless. I turn it over to you.
Okay, Amy?
Yeah, so land subject to coastal storm flowage. So Greg, they're gonna be using an excavator to install footings? That seems like, I feel like they,
So a mini excavator would typically be used in this case.
oh, a mini, okay.
Yeah, mini excavator. Yep, it's a 4-foot
Picturing like
deep
a-
sonotube.
4x8 sonnet tube. Does that sound right, Frank? Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I think
I-
that this meets the requirements of a negative.
I wouldn't want to dig those by hand.
No,
Okay, so Andy,
No questions for me.
Brendan,
Sorry. Yeah, no questions for me.
Jen,
Nope, I'm good.
Penny,
I'm fine.
Doug,
No questions.
and I'm all set. Anybody in the audience?
Seeing none, Frank.
I'll make a motion for a -3 then.
I have a second.
I'll second that.
Brendan, all in favor, Doug,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
So now we're on to administrative items. There is a request for a minor modification for 56 Peggy Beach Road, DEP project 682890, Jones, Alyssa Jones Foundation change. Jen, do we have a plan of that available? And Greg, are you on to speak for this?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great.
And I believe Alyssa Jones is on as well, if you want to unmute her. You ready?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so this is a project at 56 Peggy Beach Road that we had permitted with the commission last year. It was, an addition to the single family home there. During the construction process and the permitting with the building department, a portion of the existing house extends into the FEMA floodplain. And there was a discrepancy on where that FEMA floodplain was. Our intent here with the amendment is to remove that portion of the existing home from the floodplain so that the entire building will now fall in the zone X. So we're removing the portion of the house that currently exists in the
lost Greg.
He's
floodplain,
removing it.
replacing it.
Right. Well, and so I was gonna say that this appears consistent with a minor modification.
Do we have to vote on it? Or do,
Yes, to vote, make a motion to accept the minor mod.
Let's just see if anybody else has
Yeah.
any thoughts on that. Doug,
No, not really, but they're gonna remove that part of the structure there then. With that's that little bayway with all the windows and everything like that.
That is correct.
I think it's a shame. I love that part.
We do too.
Yeah, and that's because it's partly in that, in the VE zone.
Correct. So the
That's-
whole building would have to be brought into compliance if that was to remain versus if it's removed, that's not the case.
Wow, that's a shame, but yeah, I don't have any questions.
And Greg, there's no way you could get like a Loma on that or something like that?
We've tried pretty extensively with the building inspector and we've spoken directly with FEMA in this case, and the answer is no, unfortunately.
Huh,
How is that
it's dry up.
velocity zone determined to so precisely? Like,
Yeah, so that's that was a largely debated topic on the phone calls with FEMA. Velocity zones are typically a graphic overlay of where the floodplain is. It's not
Exactly.
defined based on a ground contour. When this house was built, this house is not that old. I don't have the exact date, but I want to say it was late 80s. And a building permit was issued, and it was outside of the zones at that point. Since then, I don't think the zones have changed at this location. And if you do a graphic overlay on it today, it still is outside of it. However, FEMA is saying that it is within it just at that corner, and that the building permit was initially issued in error.
Wow,
So
really.
that's being corrected with this amendment.
Okay.
Is this one of the items that was targeted or not targeted, but brought up during our FEMA overlook? I
Yes,
don't
it
think
is.
it was, because well, wasn't part of the one that I was just part of, because we don't have the findings back from that yet. So it must
I'm
have
sure
been
you could ask, I think, Neil Duggan about this one.
Oh, I've heard bits and pieces of it, but it seems.
It
It's hard
seems
to
a
believe
shame.
that it's velocity, honestly, but
It is what it is.
yeah, so this is the solution.
Yep.
Okay. Penny,
Fortunate.
No, I'm all set.
Jen,
I'm good.
Andy,
I'm all set.
and Brendan.
I'm all set.
It's it is a shame, but sometimes you can't get too far with.
And other
It's just not
times
worth
they
it.
let things go.
Um,
Okay, I'll make a motion that we accept this minor modification on 56 Peggy Beach Road.
do I have a second?
A second that.
So all in favor, Doug,
Yes.
Jen,
Yep.
Andy,
Yes.
Frank, yes. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Certificates of compliance.
We
We
don't
have
to
a,
vote on
we've
that.
got a big calling for CFCs right now. I mean, they're just, with 3,000 cases and a lot of outstanding orders, they keep flooding in, but anyways, here's 4 that we're in the process of issuing. And you don't vote on them. I just take a look at them. I think. we've got
They look good to you,
mostly
Amy?
Septic systems, yeah. Houses, septic systems, and anyways, and then the next item, the enforcement, we talked about that we're not gonna talk about enforcement tonight. And then you need a motion for the orders, and then we get to call it a wrap.
Okay, I was not at the last meeting, but I did read the orders. They seem pretty standard, but I don't know if I should make the motion or not.
Maybe Jen Foley can make the motion.
Yeah, because I didn't hear the,
Okay. I make a motion, we accept the orders of conditions for 107 Turner Road, Lot 6 Elm Street, and 12 Oceanside Drive.
So do I have a second?
I second that.
Brendan's got it. All in favor, Doug?
Yes.
So Penny, you want to vote on that?
no, because I wasn't here, so I
Okay.
don't think I should.
Andy,
Yes.
Frank, yes. Okay,
Okay, good.
what do you want to touch on? We want to discuss these enforcements, or are we good?
No,
No, we don't have anything new to discuss, honestly. So
Okay.
we're making some progress.
I don't understand what there would be to discuss. I thought they were supposed to do a
Well,
bond.
we're
No, there's
waiting
a
on a
lot going on
plan.
Yeah, all right,
But anyways, next week, I'm hopeful that there will be something that, because
Okay.
apparently, both, owners are on the engineer for the plan that is needed.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
so a motion to close?
Make a motion to close, to
I
adjourn.
want to just tell everybody that we've actually broken ground at Damon.
Really?
Yeah,
Awesome.
trees, scrubbing.
Frank, are you trying to beat my baby?
No, it's not gonna happen.
I won't ask you to wait that
Money.
long.
We have to get more money, Jen, at town meeting.
But we're hoping to get far enough along so we're ready for a couple of road reclamation projects for materials. So so far, we're making some good progress.
That's all I wanted before my baby came. So I guess I could have it any day now.
There you go,
What's the, which
When's your
park?
due date?
Damon. It's in the
So
middle
are
of-
you gonna name your baby Damon in honor?
Oh,
I'm naming it Frank, actually.
but it's a girl.
It's a girl.
That's like naming a boy Sue.
How about bread and jam for Francis?
You never know.
When are you supposed to be due?
Let's
August 30th.
Okay.
Yeah.
My first, I was due August 29th and I delivered September 13th, so good luck.
That will not happen to me. I am not that patient.
all right.
I had to sit and get bigger for 2 more weeks, like, was not happy.
You guys
girl.
can chat about this.
All right,
after the
all right.
meeting.
Motion. Adjourn.
We got a
Let's do it.
motion to adjourn.
I
Right.
second that.
We got a
Motion.
second. All in favor, Doug?
Yes.
And who did make the motion? Penny?
I did. Good
Yeah,
night.
Jen? Andy?
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Great. Thanks so much. Have a great